You're about to hear something that could completely reshape how we view global tech power plays. China just executed a move that Washington didn't see coming. And no, it wasn't by pouring in more cash or mimicking American chip blueprints. It was by flipping the entire script. See, while the US was busy investing $52 billion into semiconductor subsidies, trying to keep its grip on silicon supremacy, China was quietly making a decisive shift. They reclassified photonic and neuromorphic chips as assets of national strategic importance. And that changes everything. Because this wasn't about matching America, it was about leapfrogging it. Photonics, chips that use light instead of electricity, could represent the next major leap in computation. And while Washington was still laser-focused on silicon, Beijing was laying the groundwork for a future powered by light, not circuits. Instead of copying the US strategy, China rewrote the rulebook. Even without access to the advanced EUV lithography systems, tools the West considered essential, China's chip industry has been accelerating. In 2023, US chip exports to China plunged by 42%, yet China's domestic chip sector grew by over 12%. This isn't some lucky break. It signals something deeper. Dr. Kevin Xu nailed it when he said, "What looks like China lagging behind may actually be China choosing to follow a different playbook." Think about that for a second. What if this isn't even a race anymore? What if the US and China are no longer competing on the same track? The US is still trying to win by outspending and doubling down on silicon. But China? It's sidestepping the race altogether. In late 2024, researchers at Huawei University in Wuhan released a paper describing a major breakthrough in photonic chips. These processors didn't just perform. They outclassed traditional silicon chips in both bandwidth and thermal efficiency by a factor of 8. And they were built entirely with homegrown tech, no US IP, no EUV machines. The project, called Suncor, sent shockwaves through US intelligence circles, prompting an emergency review by DARPA and the National Security Council. Even Intel's CTO admitted at CES 2025 that China's progress in photonics had blown past expectations. This isn't an isolated win. China is already moving toward commercial deployment of photonic systems. While the West is still refining silicon, China's racing ahead into a new paradigm. And it's not just photonics. Take SMIC for example. In 2024, they delivered a 7nm chip for Huawei, without EUV. Using older DUV tools, once thought obsolete, they achieved transistor densities comparable to Apple's A13 chip. They're not just making do, they're redefining what's possible with legacy tech. SMIC has even placed a $3.2 billion order for domestically made etching and deposition tools, reflecting a nearly 50% increase from the previous year. This isn't just about survival, it's about building a whole new self-reliant ecosystem. Dr. Chris Miller, formerly of TSMC, summed it up. China isn't catching up to EUV, it's creating a new standard of good enough. And that standard is already inside over 15 million devices. So what happens when China, using older tools, starts out innovating the West on a different technological foundation? What happens when the cost of competing becomes too high for traditional players? Let's talk about photonics again, because this is massive. Using light instead of electricity, photonic chips could slash AI energy consumption by up to 90%. That's not just more efficient, it's revolutionary. In 2024, the US Department of Energy allocated a modest $147 million toward photonics. China, by contrast, committed $1.3 billion through its National Natural Science Foundation, spanning 17 university programs and 8 new startups. This isn't a short-term bet, it's long-game strategy. And it doesn't stop there. In early 2025, researchers at Peking University published a paper in Nature revealing a working 2D transistor made from molybdenum disulfide and hexagonal boron nitride. This transistor, built with modified DUV machines and costing under $400,000, outperformed Intel's most recent 3nm nodes by 60% in energy efficiency. While the West treats 2D materials as lab experiments, China is already pushing prototypes toward production. Moore's law may be fading, but China isn't just extending it, it's rewriting it. Meanwhile, back in the States, things aren't running as smoothly. By Q1 2025, $39 billion of US chip funding had been assigned, but only 18% of the approved projects had broken ground. Intel's Arizona plant? Delayed until mid-2026. TSMC's US expansion? Bogged down by cost overruns and culture clashes. The message is clear: the US semiconductor engine is stalling. While America continues to treat tech leadership as a function of budget size, China is focused on structural innovation, building ecosystems that adapt, scale, and evolve fast. It's not just about money, it's about mobilizing resources where they'll make the biggest impact. Between 2020 and 2024, Chinese local governments distributed $19 billion in chip-related grants, most of it aimed at moving university research into commercial production. That's how you build momentum. And now, graphene is entering the mix. In 2024, Shenzhen-based Graphtech delivered prototype logic gates using graphene field effect transistors to a major telecom company. Imports of graphite, a critical raw material for graphene, spiked by 67%, signaling a clear intention: vertical integration of the next-gen chip supply chain. While US giants like Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft, and Amazon still dominate in market cap, over $6.2 trillion combined, analysts are beginning to shift their outlook. Goldman Sachs recently downgraded long-term projections for silicon-first companies, while China's AI chip market surged by 24% in 2024, powered largely by domestic accelerators. This isn't catch-up. It's divergence. China has stopped benchmarking against the West. It's building its own path, its own timeline, and that spells a real challenge for the current tech order. The question isn't who wins this chip war. It's what happens when two different wars are being fought, and only one side realizes it. So as the global tech power structure shifts and these ecosystems begin to collide, we need to ask, what does the future look like when innovation no longer flows from Silicon Valley but from Shenzhen, Wuhan, and Beijing? This isn't just a new chapter in tech. It might be an entirely different book.